Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert. Narendra, I wanted to kick off from with you, get your sense in the sort of geostrategic energy analysis here. What do you think they're discussing in Riyadh? The US and Russia are coming together. There's nobody else in the room, no Ukraine, no Europe, no India. The My question is Ukraine really top of the agenda for this discussion, or is this just a gateway discussion into a much broader conversation, do you think, between Washington and Moscow that might include China? We've seen Russia and China get very close in recent years. It could include, there's a big developments in the Middle East. What do you think is the sort of priorities of this talks in Riyadh?
Well, the very fact that the talk took place in Riyadh and means that actually Ukraine is very high on the agenda. But if you look at the press conferences made by both sides, Russia and the United States, it appears their top priority also at the same time is to normalize relations between Russia and the United States. That might be a kind of, an optic, but at the same time, I think it's to facilitate so that they can move forward. And if you read between the lines statement, especially by the American Secretary of State, it was very clear that he was talking a more inclusive approach. Means, of course, Ukraine on the table, but also other Western partners in Western part of the Europe, including EU and the United Kingdom. So I think, as talks make progress, you will see all these parties also participating, maybe not very directly, but to start with, they're going to be consultations, and I think then they will bring them on the table. They may not appear on the high table finally, but I'm sure that, now British Prime Minister is traveling to Washington, D.C., and as we know, talks have already started with President Zelensky and with Germans. So I think, the Americans know it very well. Unless they have all these actors also on board, they may not really be able to achieve what they're seeking to achieve. So, but they've started with a kind of, optics, which basically are giving the message to the Europeans, West Europeans in particular, that, look, America is very keen to resolve this issue. They want this war to end. At the same time, they don't want that, the American interests, especially American interests, are compromised anyway. So I think it's a very important message. But the message which is being welcomed by many capitals, including New Delhi, is that at least finally somebody has taken initiative, to put an end to the war. Because there have been a bit of frustration that the Europeans were not taking any initiative to end the war. We're not saying that it should be this way or that way, or accepting everything what Russians want or everything that Ukrainians want. But at least there should have been some initiative. There was nothing happening on that front. So there is a welcome move as far as countries like India is concerned, that at least somebody has taken initiative. In that case, it happens to be President Trump, and the two parties started talking. And if you look at the body language of American foreign minister and also Russian foreign minister, the body language was very positive. So it's being read as a positive development. It's too early to say because the road is going to be pretty long.
Just moving on a little bit to the fundamentals of the oil markets as they stand at the moment. I mean, Mike talking there about the sort of everywhere he looks, he sees more supply and the downward pressure on prices. But I wanted to get your sense of where is demand. There's increasing narrative in the last few months, and backed up by sort of reporting by the World Bank and others, that India's big growth moment is over, or it's certainly in a declining outlook. Your thoughts on that sort of general review, not 8%, more like 5 to 6%. And perhaps falling. Where is India at the moment? What's the weakness and what's the outlook for it to get worse or to recover back to the sort of eights we saw in recent years, 8% growth?
Well, I've seen the reports, of course. We all have seen the reports. And if you look at the last quarter was a little bit disappointing. And the government has been repeatedly saying that you should look at the full financial year. We follow 1st April to 31st of March as fiscal year. And this fiscal, for instance, already there are reports that probably is going to do fine. So, but overall, if you look at the activities, both data and also at the same time anecdotal evidences, I think you see boom everywhere. And so my own sense is that, probably if we say that 6% growth rate or 6.2% growth rate, I think then we are on a very safe, turf. But my own sense is the government approach is to really push it to 7%, growth rate. But even if we don't get there, 7%, 7.2%, if we maintain
I mean,
6%.
clearly they would want that, but like, I suppose that what we want to try and understand is why has it come off? I mean, nothing goes up in a straight line forever, obviously, but there's a big question mark, a big sort of long-term narrative that India is emerging to be the new China. It has all sorts of sort of trend lines of continuous. Is this a blip or is this something more concerning? What is the trigger, the cause? I mean, it seems since Narendra Modi didn't win his majority in the election last year, it's kind of been a weaker wicket.
No. It's just a blip. I mean, the fact that he didn't get full majority in parliament actually has made no difference. If you see the last 3 months, BJP has won election in Maharashtra, the critical state, very crucial state. Only just, last week, they won Delhi election as well with a huge majority. So I think, it's just a blip. When you look at overall why, if you look at it from practically every major company is coming and investing in India. So why are they coming here? Tesla is the new one. We just bought space in Delhi and Bombay to open their stores. So now I think it's just a blip. You have to look at the basic and the elementary fundamentals of India's economy, agriculture, manufacturing, services, and at the same time, the government, capital expenditure, especially in infrastructure, that all seem to be growing and all seem to be doing pretty well. So my own sense is, yes, we have seen the report. I mean, those who were expecting India to grow at 9% and 10%, or those who really want to go only in the industry which is moved out of China, have relocated to India, that's the only parameter, then they can reach to their different conclusion. But if you look at India as a market and kind of, the kind of policy push, the policy infrastructure, at the same time, real growth on the ground from north to south to east to west, then I think it's very safe to say that India will continue to grow at 6% minimum. And if there are winds which kind of favor further growth, you might see it actually touching 6.6 to 6.7, but 6% very safe.
Narendra, I wanted to get your thoughts on where India is in all of this shift. I mean, we talked obviously the sort of where you see the talks in Riyadh and what U.S. Russia might be focused on. You've said in the past quite repeatedly that India's imports of Russian oil, discounted oil in recent years, not only the economic opportunity that it presented, but also to remove Russia's overdependence on the Chinese market, that India wants to make sure that Russia has other friends than just China. What do you think of the US's efforts to separate Russia and China after these 3 years of what appears to be a very close bond? And where does India fit into that equation?
Well, my sense is that, what President Trump is trying to do, with Ukraine, and if he succeeds in his mission to end the war in Ukraine, which means that, it can be business as usual as far as the US and Russia are concerned. And Russia then can focus its own business more, would have more space for that.
But I mean, just to push back, sorry, I just want to push, but business as usual. There's no such thing as Russia-US business as usual. In the last 30 years since the collapse of the 1989 Berlin Wall, we've had a variety of different pieces of stuff, but there's never been something that you would describe as usual. There's no going back to something that was as usual. Is there? What would that look like?
Well, when I say business as usual, I think it's important to understand and recognize that the overall global geopolitical landscape is changing. So if you go back, if you're comparing with what happened in the last 30 years, then you will reach to the wrong conclusion. When I say business as usual, where Russia can focus on itself and realize its own potential, build bridges with the countries that it needs to build bridges. But my sense is President Trump wants Russia's dependence on China to come down so that, because President Trump's focus is China. He wants to be free as far as, Ukraine issue is concerned, Gaza issue is concerned, so that he can go, focus on China and that region 100%, Indo-Pacific region. That's my sense. And if so basically, if that happens and if he succeeds, bring about some kind of truce or peace or, or freeze the war in Ukraine, then I think, he will have more space, diplomatic space. And also, my sense is President Trump has two agendas. First, make America great again. If Ukraine war continues, and if oil prices continue to be more than $80 plus barrel, then he would not succeed in make America great again. No way. So therefore, it is important that he can somehow, bring peace to Ukraine, peace to Europe, and at the same time, some kind of peace in the Middle East, so that he can focus on his domestic agenda, make America great again, and his external agenda, that's basically to contain China. It works very well for India. You see, if, for instance, Russia has this, full autonomic strategy, autonomy, that's good for India. So what President Trump is trying to do in terms of, Ukraine, that means that Russia can focus on its own strengths, its own business as usual, on realizing its own potential. Perfect. That's great news for countries like India. Because don't forget one thing, as geopolitical, the chessboard goes through this massive change. It is throwing up huge opportunity for India to emerge as a kind of third pole, as a kind of a superpower in its own right, and takes its own time at the same time. So you will have the West together with, of course, you see, West unity is not going anywhere. So I don't buy this report that, Europe and America are falling. There's no such thing is going to happen. There's going to be West very strong. You will have China, which has started thinking more like the West. So China is the new West. So these are going to basically occupy most of the space on the geopolitical chessboard. But for India, this development provide an opportunity where India can be close to the United States, close to Russia, at the same time can have regular business with China.